Pulp MX Network production.
Bringing you a cheeky Brit and an American YouTube racing sensation weekly. It's the LVK More Than Moto podcast with your hosts, Lewis Phillips and Kellen Brauer.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Leatt LVK More Than Moto podcast. I am Kellen Brauer, joined by Lewis Phillips. Daytona in the rearview mirror now. It is round 8 of this championship behind us. 9 rounds still to go. So we are at the midpoint, more or less, of Monster Energy AMA Supercross. And I got to experience the Daytona Supercross for the first time in my life this weekend. I had many worries from people like you, Lewis, people like Steve, that I would not have a fun time, but I had a great time at Daytona. How did you have a good time this weekend, Lewis? Or was it a good time, I should say?
How did I have a good time?
Yeah.
What an interesting
Well,
question.
I mean, I figured you did, since you had the sweet life of Steve and Lewis.
It would be, it did cross my mind that I wonder if you can change the sweet life of Zach and Cody to Stephen Lewis quite easily. Because I felt like that would be a social media hit, but I forgot about it, unfortunately. No, it was good, wasn't it? I enjoyed it much more than Daytona last year, my first Daytona, for whatever reason. I don't know why exactly, but yeah, this was much better for me.
Well, if I can theorize, every time I go to a new venue that I've never been to before, I always have, let's say, a little anxiety about where do I go? How do I get to this place and all this stuff? And I had that a little bit with Daytona this weekend, but I feel like it was relatively easy to figure stuff out. And I feel like maybe that's what you felt last year, is trying to figure out where to go, and everything is a struggle.
And also I knew the bar was realistic this year. Whereas honestly, last year I went to Daytona expecting it to blow my mind, and it didn't. So I was a little bit Whereas this year I went in with modest expectations.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it just comes down to that, really.
So how was the sweet life? Let the fans in on what it's like to be treated like royalty.
Well, first and foremost, I ate, because really it just comes down to the food, to be honest. Because aside from the food, there isn't much there.
I don't know. I did not have the president of the Speedway invite me into his suite, so I don't know.
You know what? But essentially, the press box is a suite. Essentially,
yeah, sure. But
so really, it is just the difference is the fact that it's catered. If you want to zero in,
yeah. I mean, some press boxes we have, though, I would argue are not very sweet-ish.
No, okay, but Daytona specific was a nice press box.
It is.
So I had a hot dog, which, to be honest, I could have got from concessions probably. I had a brilliant buffalo chicken sandwich. I'm a big buffalo chicken guy.
Honestly, that strikes me as so odd, because I know your palate. I know that you're I would call it a simple eater. You don't like to have extravagant food. And buffalo chicken, I wouldn't call it extravagant either, but it's not just meat and cheese. It's actually
I love
some sauce.
I love spice. I love spice.
You're a spice
big
guy.
Spice guy. Yeah, big spice guy. I like to have spice on everything. And then we moved on to the dessert portion, which no one cares about, but essentially brilliant cupcakes and brilliant ice cream machine. On with the show.
No one cares about. Yes. So Daytona was very interesting in a lot of different facets. We're going to get into a lot of it on the show here today. We have 2 first-time winners of the Daytona Supercross as well, which is always, I feel exciting. We've talked about it, I feel a couple times this year, how it's weird that we came into this season and we're oh, it's going to be these 4 guys, and now we have, 6 different winners in the 450 class and 6 in the 250 class? 7? I mean, it's insane. The role of who's going to win a race just keeps on going on. So we'll get into that and much more on the show here today. And of course, a huge thank you to Leatt, Namura, Race Tech, Partzilla, all back in the show. We'll tell you guys more about them throughout the show. We're also going to do a giveaway today. We'll tell you guys more on that later on. So please stay tuned in for the rest of the show. If you've never been with us on the LVK More Than Moto podcast before, basically we're going to go through 6 topics, 3 for me, 3 for Lewis, 7 minutes apiece. So let's dive in, shall we? My first topic of the day, let's talk about our race winner from the 450 class, Ken Roczen. And I want to talk about Roczen specifically in the manner of how he won this race, which is it wasn't a Roczen whole shot, runaway, has a big lead, coasted in, etc., which some Supercross main events that he has won going away have looked at like. But this one to me was a little bit different. He worked his way into a position to win. He realized, in my opinion, that Cooper Webb was closing down late. and upped his pace, and Webb made a mistake, which we talked a couple weeks ago in Detroit. Webb was always going to have that killer instinct late in the race, and Roczen, in my opinion, kind of survived it this time. So I feel like that this is a bigger deal the way Roczen won this, more so than that he won this race. What say you?
I don't know if I'm that far into it like you, because although you're right, I think, about this maybe being a different Kenny win, I don't think that all of his wins have come from just...
I'm not saying all.
No, but like I wouldn't even say a majority, to be honest. But then, obviously, it's tough to recall that. You'd have to have some hard numbers to really figure that out. But no, like in my mind, maybe it's more of a traditional Kenny win, because sprint early, make passes, which we know he's great in the opening laps, and then maintain.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right. He did maintain, like, the middle portion of the race was what I would call like quintessential Kenny win, which is like he built just a good enough gap. No one was close. He was certainly kind of the guy at the midpoint. But I still feel like I just look at the way that with Webb closing late on him, the way that Roczen responded to that and didn't seem flustered and seemed to have the fitness to go all the way through. We talked 100 times about how Kenny fades either late in races or late in championships. This time he did not. And I feel like that's kind of proof in the pudding of what he sings about this Suzuki this year specifically. He's been very comfortable from the get-go. He hasn't been making a ton of changes. He's happy with the bike the way it is. It's working in a lot of different facets, and he feels like he can ride it the entire time the way that he wants to ride it, which is why, again, like if you're just encapsulating this win specifically versus other wins that he's had on the Suzuki, this one feels more like, oh yeah, Kenny found a way to beat all the guys that are there on the track. Maybe not all the best guys, because obviously Tomac and Jett aren't there, and I know people always cry about that. But all the guys that were there, Kenny seemed to be the best on the night.
Okay, this is what I can give you data-wise to maybe either back up your claim or refute your claim or whatever you want. So Kenny led 9 laps en route to the Daytona win, which obviously in a traditional setting would be more laps. It's a lower number because the lap times are so much longer.
Yeah, so let's make it 12 on a normal main or something.
Running through his most recent victories, 20 laps led in Glendale 2024, 27 laps led Indianapolis 2023, 2022, 1 win, Anaheim 1, 22 laps led, so that would have been the entire main event. 2021, I don't remember what venue this was, but round 14, 14 laps led. And then he swept the Indianapolis triple header with 26 laps led, 26 laps led, 15 laps led. We go back to 2020, round 15, 26 laps led, probably all of them. Round 9, 25 laps led. Round 4, 38 laps led. That would have been a triple crown, the Glendale triple crown. And then second round, 23 laps led. So actually, if I go back and look at it all, this is... And again, it's skewed because it's Daytona, so less laps, so that almost irrelevant, but not entirely. How would you define this? This is the second least number of laps that Ken Roczen has led en route to a main event win. The only lower one was Atlanta 2014, his second 450 win when he led 6.
Yeah, and that one was, he like kind of, I don't want to say ran Villapoto down, but just hawked him the whole race, and then Villo made a mistake. So that was certainly a different circumstance too. But does that? I don't know. I feel like that kind of proves my point. Like he rode forward, he passed guys. He didn't just get in the lead and win this race. Like he found a way to get around AP and Anderson, and Webb was close and rode away from Webb at points of that race. You know, the only person I think that you could say raw speed had it on Roczen that night was Chase, but then Chase had his issues. We're not going to really get into it, but like, I think that Roczen rose to the occasion for this round specifically and rode maybe better than he has through the course of a bad-ish start in a main event to the win than he maybe ever has.
Do you not think that Webb had him covered in raw speed towards the end? Or do you just put that down to fitness and conditioning?
Well, like I said, we watched this from the press box, and it was like, oh, here comes Webb. He's on it. He's reeling him in. We're almost down to a second. And then he makes a mistake. So I don't want to overread that situation too much. I don't want to say like, oh, Webb cracked because he was trying too hard. I don't want to say that. I'm not saying that at all. But I do think that there is something to be said, the fact that Roczen also picked up his pace. They did start walking away from the rest of the field at that point in time. It was relatively close with Sexton and Jacob and Plessinger all still there about, let's say, 14 minutes into the race. And by the end, there was a big gap. So Roczen did find a way to respond to that Webb charge. And I think that's important.
Yeah, and I think it's certainly important for his confidence, his mindset heading into Indianapolis, which, in all honesty, is probably his number one venue on the Supercross calendar. Won there 2 years ago, swept the triple header there in 2021, was brilliant there last year, gave Jet Lawrence all he could handle. So the way in which he won in Daytona has set him up brilliantly to potentially capitalize and win again, which I would argue he needs to prove that this isn't just a one-hit wonder like his previous 2 wins on a Suzuki.
No, I agree. And I mean, he needs to from a championship standpoint too, because he went from 19 back to 16 back of Webb now. He really, in my opinion, needs Chase or Jay Coop or somebody else to give more points to him in the way that like they get on the box and Webb doesn't, or push Webb back a couple positions. Because I think like we're going to get to Foxborough and Philly and places like that, and Webb will probably win. And so Roczen needs to be closer then than he is now.
Yeah, I'm still in the position of just going with the flow with Roczen in the championship chase. Whereas with Chase, it's more like he needs to win this weekend. He needs blah, blah, blah. This is a gap. This is what's coming up. With Roczen, I'm still like, let's just keep the ball rolling and then see where we are with 6 rounds to go.
No, that's fair. And I mean, I hope he gets close because I think this would be a fun championship. But can you imagine if he loses this title by like 7 points? How many people are going to talk about Tampa? It's insane.
I'm just trying to think if the other two have. I mean, if Chase loses the championship by X number of points, everyone will just point to Arlington, I guess.
Well, just point to this, that, the 14 other things probably.
Webb doesn't really have a. Well, Webb's bad race was Anaheim too, but there wasn't exactly a reason for that to point to, other than just it was a bad race. But yeah, no, good point.
Yeah. All right. That's the end of this first topic of the day. I want to remind you guys to check out Leatt at Leatt. Protection is our brand DNA. It started 20 years ago with the groundbreaking Leatt neck brace and continues today with an extensive product offering of protective gear and riding apparel. But what Leatt really stands for is inspiring confidence and ensuring safety with every ride. And may have been the last Daytona Supercross for Leatt's Kyle Chisholm. Hopefully not. I hope he races again. Do you like to see guys like Chiz keep trying to come back, or is there a point in time where you're like, okay, man, just go? Like, we're at the end.
A guy like Chiz, I think it's fine.
Yeah,
I do believe.
I think we see Chiz race a couple more times next year. I know he says this is his last full-time year, but I think he comes back for Tampa and Daytona next year, probably like the Florida races or something.
Yeah, I would agree. And I mean, who knows? At some point next year, someone needs to fill in. Maybe they call Chiz, and I feel like he would jump at that.
Do you think if Chiz was available right now, like he had chosen to like, oh, I'm retiring at the end of 2024, but I'm still going to race a little bit in 2025, that any team would have given him a call for a fill-in, aka Honda?
Not Honda, unless Honda really wanted to put emphasis on testing, which we know Chiz is great at.
Yeah. PC?
Maybe. Why not? It's been done once.
Or went out for PC. Okay, let's move on to our second topic here on the show. MXGP kicked off their opening round of 2025 this past weekend. And yeah, honestly, I kind of wanted to just like riff with you about this, Lewis, because I don't know. Like, I don't follow GPs, I feel like, as closely as I used to. I should be better about it. But as we talked about on the show last week coming in, it seemed very Geyser was kind of the guy to beat, especially when you take a healthy Jeffrey Hurlings away and Jorge Prado moves to the USA, and Geyser's won 5 of these championships already. So yeah, but are we surprised he didn't look better the opening round? Like, should we read into that more? Is Maxime Renault suddenly like the guy? Like, is there anything that we take away from the opening round, or is it just a weird round?
We are surprised, not concerned. I do wonder if there's a little bit of and I don't. There is an example of this in the past, but I can't remember what it is. No Jeffrey, no Jorge. I almost feel like Tim was in a phase of figuring out where he stands in this class and what he needs to do, because there is no doubt he is the best rider in the class, the most decorated, the most talented, etc., 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 etc. So I almost feel like he came into round one. Whereas other years it was like, I've got to give this all I've got. I feel like he would have come into round one this year a little bit more like, let's figure out what I need to do here.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that then results in a more steady ride, a more conservative ride. Looking at that track, which was nice, Cordoba, I feel like it was a Tim track, so I'm surprised as well that he didn't capitalize from the point of view that I feel like it's a track, a surface he would normally excel on. But ultimately, he's fine. I go back to what I said last week. He will win a majority of the races. Febvre and Renault will have trouble staying healthy and consistent, and Tim will probably not finish off the podium at all this year, and if he does, it'll be once.
Yeah, I got to check myself because I always just assume some people maybe know what happened. But Maxime Renault won the opening round. He went 2-1. Romain Febvre went 1-2. So the Frenchmen split the motos. They tied atop the points table, but Renault gets the overall because he won the second moto. And Geyser went 3-3. And I just feel like at no point did Geyser look like, oh, I'm going to challenge them for the win, either in the qualifying race, which he started kind of up there. And was it Febvre caught him and passed him? Yeah, Febvre caught him and passed him and went with Renault, right? And then Geyser slipped back to like 10 seconds back. And then both motos, like the Frenchies kind of got away. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't read much into it either because it is the opening round, but it is interesting that, like, obviously, as you said, he was like the kind of clear favorite coming in, and those guys look to be the better of him. But maybe it's just Argentina. Who knows?
Honestly, just thank God that Tim didn't go 1-1, because otherwise the excitement, like, this has really put an injection of excitement into the MXGP class, I feel. Again, I don't expect it to continue. If Tim doesn't win round two, then I will start to raise more of an eyebrow. Like, I really do expect him to win instantly. But who knows? I guess Febvre is Febvre, who we know, what we know. Renault is a little more of a wild card because we haven't really seen him put together a title run on 450s, but he's clearly perfectly capable based on Argentina. He's only his third 450 win, which I feel like would surprise a lot of people.
Yeah, that is a bit surprising. Let me ask you about Lucas Kunin. The two broken arms coming in. He wears compression sleeves on Friday and doesn't really say much about the injury or anything like that. Crashed at the start of the quali race, so that's why he was so far back, but ends up getting 6th overall. And I feel like that's kind of like a big win, in my opinion, from the outside looking in. Do you think that that's something like, oh crap, he just got a decent amount of points and he's only going to get stronger from here, and we know that speed-wise has the potential to win. We haven't seen it yet on a 450, but we know he's damn good. So, like, that's kind of a big deal that he got 6, no?
Yeah, and he's going to win races, and he's going to maybe battle for the championship isn't the right word, but he will battle for a medal in the championship for sure. Certainly he is in that group of Geyser, Febvre, Renault. Pissing me off a little bit, though, with all of these Instagram posts saying, like, nothing is impossible, I'm a fighter. If you're going to be putting that out, tell us what the injury is. Like, you can't go on Instagram non-stop and say, I'm a fighter, nothing is impossible, without ever actually confirming you've got an injury, which he still has not done. They asked him about it in a preseason press conference, which pissed me off also, to be fair. The press conference, not Lucas. And he just said, it's a long season. And it's like, well, just tell us. Like, you're clearly not hiding it because you're hinting and dancing around the fact that there is an injury. Luckily, I've now received the scans, and it is more wrist than arm. And it looks fairly minor to me, although I'm not a doctor and I wasn't given much context to the scans. So I was really just looking at them with my own with the knowledge that I have.
Is it cracks? Is it like actual, I don't know, the bone fractured through? Is he got chips off the bone? Like,
well, again, I'm not a doctor, and to be honest, the issue is that I don't have a regular wrist scan to confirm it, to compare it to.
I do want to ask you really quickly. I got a minute of time left here. 250 class. Weird weekend, in my opinion. Like, no one seemed to really want it in a way. Kai DeWolf has a weird 1-6 overall win. Adamo wins the quali race. Obviously, DeWolf wins the first moto. And then the second moto was Sasha Kunin. And then like Langenfelder was in position to win the overall, but crashes it away twice late in the second moto. I don't feel like anybody looked solid, if that makes sense. I don't know what to say about it other than just like, well, that was weird.
To a degree, yes, but that is what MX2 is. My biggest takeaway from MX2 is, fuck me, these other manufacturers need to sort themselves out, because this is going to turn into a Pierre Mobility runaway once again. Mattis Valin, or Valan, I think is how you say it. He probably looks the best of the non-Pierre Mobility Group riders. I really believe in Triumph's Camden McClellan. I would expect Guillaume Farès to be better, but at this point, it once again looks like, similar to last year, the Pierre Mobility Group could sweep all 20 Grand Prix, which is just, honestly, embarrassing. In MotoGP, when Ducati won all of those races last year, it's more of a statement because of the technology side of those sports, and F1, MotoGP, having the best bike is a true factor. In MX2, there's no excuse for Yamaha or Kawasaki or Honda. I mean, Honda doesn't really have the riders to win, but Yamaha specifically, I guess, is who I'm looking at. There's no excuse for Yamaha to not win other than sign better riders, put together a better program. Hutton Metal probably shouldn't be the MX2 team, in all honesty. So let's figure that out and get it into the Kimiya team so they're looking after both sides. Truth be told, they probably never should have got rid of Wilvo, but they've done that now. So let's get MX2 program under Kimiya and start rebuilding, because quite frankly, Kellen, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, the top 6 of the top 7 were KTM or Husqvarna. It was DeWolf, Kunin, Langenfelder, Everts, Adamo, top 5 at leading the first round.
And Adamo had a DNF. So it's actually, KTM.
And I mean that in points, not overall GP classification points.
But like KTM and Husqvarna had the top 4 overall in the GP, and realistically, Adamo would have been in that group, so they would have had the top 5. Everyone, like, either we need to come out and say we don't care about MX2, or we do care about MX2. Because if Yamaha are going to say, well, we're leading the 450 class, then fair enough. And I've been on record as saying I'm happy with that. But just this kind of state of flux isn't good enough.
I don't want to go too long on this, but I want to ask you 2 quick questions. Kaz Valk, 3rd in the first moto. Surprise? Like eyebrow raise?
No, because there is a lot of hype on Cas Volk.
I know there is, but I'm asking, like, there is a lot of hype, but are you that
Cas
hyped?
Volk is probably, heading into round 1, Cas Volk was probably the rider I was texted about the most. Okay, I don't personally see it.
That's what I'm asking. You? Like, you're like, yeah, he'll get 3rd.
If it got on a podium, I would have been more surprised, but in a moto, yes, that's acceptable. I could believe that.
Fair enough. And then I feel like I was let down by like Valerio Lata, Ferruccio Zanchi didn't look good either. Like, why? What's up with them?
You're testing my memory now. Zanchi crashed in the first corner or for start in one of the races, and Lata did 2, I believe. But I don't know. I think my expectations aren't quite there with those riders.
No, but I mean, like you said, we're trying to pick out who's going to mix it up aside from the Austrian group. And these are the hired guns, if you will. Obviously, like Benistan and Elzinga for Yamaha too, but like those guys didn't look good, in my opinion. So
I would say that Honda's MX2 program is really a build for the future this year. So I'm not going to judge the riders too harshly or any of that. But yeah, I just read in Lata's post-race quote. He said, "It felt really good to be racing in second place in that second moto. It is confirmation that I'm on the right path. Unfortunately, I couldn't stay there for the whole moto, but I'm staying positive, and this was a very big step."
All right, let's get into our third topic before we do. Big thanks to Namura, the leading provider of engine components for motocross, ATV, UTV, and personal watercraft for over 2 decades. Namura has been the preferred choice for premium and dependable engine components for more than 20 years. Whether you're restoring your vintage bike, rebuilding your four-wheeler, or upgrading your new 450 race motor, Namura has you covered. Our extensive line of cast and forged pistons, connecting rods, gasket kits, engine valves, and soon cylinder kits that enhance your engine's performance. Keep an eye out for our new and innovative products in 2025 and beyond. Stay up to date by following us on Instagram at Namura_technologies. All right, my third topic that I want to go. Well, actually, no, I forgot I was going to do this. It's now over to you, Lewis, because I want my third topic to go at the end of the show. So this is your time to shine, buddy. What
We're
do you
really
got for
just
your first
throwing
topic?
out all sense of order, aren't we?
We are. We're all over the place today. That's okay.
Okay, so I have 7 topics. And to be honest with you, none of them are really jumping off the page to me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine 2 topics.
Okay.
This isn't quite MXGP, but it could be. The busiest weekend of racing we have had so far this year. Great to have MXGP and Supercross on the same weekend. Brilliant. Very enjoyable. Really sad that MXGP isn't happening this weekend. From the weekend of racing, give me your 2 biggest winners, one in each class. And not winners as in personally. What stands out as your biggest winner in each class of one that maybe other people haven't thought about? Only means something to you? Something that just hit home.
Are you saying specifically Daytona? Because you also mentioned MXGP. Or are you saying
no, Daytona and MXGP. Around the world. Your biggest winner from around the world. So this can go anywhere. World. You could even pick in Super Enduro if you like.
Dakar? Biggest
Would you like me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead, because I need a second to think.
My 250 biggest winner from around the world is Liam Everts. And my reason for that is simple. He fractured vertebrae in his neck or vertebra in his neck, or I can't remember the exact injury, but essentially he had a very scary injury, very serious injury in China last year, penultimate round of MXGP, got back on the bike. I believe he was given the green light 2 weeks before the first round. And truth be told, I expected it to be a horrific struggle. I honestly probably would have put money on him not even racing. When I spoke to someone in January, early Feb, it sounded like he wasn't going to race. So for him to be 4th overall is just unbelievable. Like, so much respect for not only Liam, but also the Nissan Husqvarna factory racing team, because obviously they've made him very comfortable, catered to his situation well. Obviously, a lot of great work's been done with WP and all of the people who need to get the bike in the right place with limited prep. So Liam Everts gets my biggest 250 winner from around the world this weekend.
I like it. Do you want me to go next now then?
Yeah, you go 250. You go 250.
250?
Yep.
Okay.
And then we'll build up.
You ready to hate this answer?
Oh, you're going to choose Max Foland.
I'm going to choose Max Foland. Oh. But here's why. He was in a very dark place when he had to go back in and get his hips fixed again, because he had, after the crash with Cowie last year, he got his hip back in because it's dislocated. Back in, actually was pretty good for a little bit, had a lot of feeling, could feel his foot and everything like that. And I know this. He came to my house 4 weeks after the crash and was not walking great, but definitely walking. And 2 weeks after that, he was back in the hospital getting his hip fixed again. And that is when all of these problems started. This is why he can't feel his foot. This is why he has to use a handbrake, because that was a bad time. The surgeon messed some stuff up, and probably permanently changed the course of his career because of that. And I know that he mentally was in a terrible place after this, because he thought, well, shoot, like, is this it? Is this over now? So to come back, to deal with all this stuff of getting used to a new system, and then to get a top 5 in his 3rd race back, I think is a big deal. Like, it's a massive comeback from something that was almost career ending to get to this point, and I think deserves some celebration. I know that, like I said, he's like my friend, so I feel a little bit extra sentimental with it. But yeah, like, people should know that story. People should know how hard he worked to get back to this point. So I give it to Max.
Okay. 450s. This is harder for me. Actually, I just want to give an honorable mention. Tom Vialle would have been my second 250 pick.
Really?
Surprising, I know. Maybe I can make this into the next topic if we want to deep dive that. 450s, again, to be honest, not much jumps off a page from the 450 Daytona results. So again, I'm going MXGP. And I want to give it to Kevin Horgmo, but instead, I'm not going to give it to a rider. I'm going to throw out the rulebook. I'm going to give it to Ducati as a whole. Because holy shit, to come out in, okay, they raced 2 GPs last year, but let's just call this their first GP, shall we?
Sure.
Is that acceptable?
That's
sure.
acceptable.
Their first GP, and to be 4th and 7th is just... Actually, wait, I think I'm talking about the championship.
They are 4th and 7th in the championship. Yeah, okay. I hate the qualifying race so much.
The qualifying thing needs to go away. It's too much.
Seaver got 12th overall, by the way.
To be 4th and 7th in the championship after one round is just incredible. No other manufacturer has 2 bikes in the top 7. And I just feel like that is phenomenal, incredible. They looked great. Both riders looked like they could push and ride. Guadagnini looked arguably the best he ever has done. He's had 450 podiums, but he was right there. Ducati deserve all the credit in the world. And I don't know what it is about this sport, but I have seen, aside from Ducati's post themselves, I have seen 0 Ducati buzz. Whereas I feel like on Twitter, etc., all the fans should be talking about is this Ducati. Because if you watch closely, also, they were racing with stock engines. So
really?
Yeah. If you watch closely, like coming out of some of the corners at the bottom of the hills, Guadagnini would pull Febvre. Like, just lights out. So, to me, this is just incredibly impressive all around, and I just feel like this should be all the world is talking about, but instead, no one's mentioning it. Also, I know some other stuff about the Ducati. There are easy steps that will be taken in the coming weeks that will make the bike better. And they seem to be on a very good direction. So well done, Ducati.
Yeah. My 450 round the world winner, like you kind of like just stepped on it a little bit, was Mattia Guadagnini. Like the riding was very impressive, as you said, maybe the best he's looked. But we also know, I feel like that Guadagnini has this in him, and for whatever reason, it hasn't come out all the time or hardly ever. So for me, it's awesome that he's an Italian in a fully Italian team on an Italian manufacturer, getting to have a little bit of the limelight of Ducati's early success, which, I would feel the same way about if someone on a Triumph was British and took Triumph to their first win or something like that. You know what I mean? So I think it's really cool that Guadagnini was as solid as he was and looked as good as he was. And to your point about the Ducati, they whole shot both motos, so the bike looks really good. Kudos all around to them. And I don't know why they're not being talked about more. You're absolutely right. They deserve.
I think it's MXGP. I think
that's
why.
I guess like the only thing I can maybe think of is the fact that Ducati, in terms of Ducati's presence, this is maybe the worst weekend for Ducati to have a good weekend in MXGP, because they just took Marc Marquez to the top of MotoGP again, and everyone is stoked about that. So,
no, but I mean, Moto. I'm talking about like the For You page on Twitter.
I know, but I'm saying
the
like
Moto fans we see on there, I feel like they should just be frothing at the mouth.
But I'm saying like in the street bike racing world, or street world, let's say, when Triumph debuted last year, there was nothing else going on other than Triumph debuting in Detroit, and so like, for the street guys who are fans of two-wheeled action and are like, oh, Triumph, a street bike brand, just made their debut in Supercross, we want to talk about that. But unfortunately, Ducati doesn't get that limelight right now because it just happens to coincide with the MotoGP opener and Marc Marquez taking a Ducati to victory. So I think that's maybe why we don't see it as like much in the limelight, but it certainly does deserve to be.
Yeah, and I think what's most impressive to me is having 2 riders in the top 7, and that stat that no other manufacturer has 2 bikes in the top 7. Like, that really says something to me about what they've done there. And I also really liked Mattia's Instagram post where he said, "To those who doubted me, I don't blame you. I did it first." That's chills. On chills. So I thought maybe we should make that a regular segment when we have MXGP and Supercross on the same time.
I like it. That was fun.
And maybe we get the fans involved as well.
All right. Well, we're at the end of time with that topic, but I like it, Lewis. It was a good topic indeed. Let me tell you guys about Racetech. For 40 years, Racetech has been supplying the motorcycle industry with high-quality suspension components made right here in the USA. From modern to vintage, Racetech is your go-to source for suspension performance. And yeah, Racetech, crushing it as always. I can't wait to use my Racetech suspension in a couple weeks when I go racing again. Not this weekend, but in a couple weeks I'll be out on the track. So, stoked for that. Stoked to represent Racetech as well.
Wait, hold on. I was just reading something. You're racing in a couple of weeks?
Yep.
Where?
Arizona.
Why?
Just off weekend for Supercross, and my dad's going out to a race, and so I'm going to go with him.
Okay. When was the last time you raced?
Maybe like 2022.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Okay.
It's not that big of a deal. It's not like I'm going to some, not going to Loretta's or something.
Well, that seems to be the trend with media nowadays.
All right, what do you got?
Oh, what one do I want to choose? What one do I want to choose? You know what? You were intrigued by my Tom Vialle take. So let's go there.
Okay.
Call me crazy, Kellen.
You're crazy.
And you know, as well as I do, that as well as you and as well as I, no, as well as you, I also pre-250 East kind of gave Vialle no shot of his championship. Fair?
Yeah, but I mean,
But
like,
also,
you
so
weren't
did
the
everyone.
only one.
No,
Yeah.
everyone did. I don't know if anyone...
I tried to sing his praises a little bit more, and I got kind of crapped on for it, but yeah.
By me?
No, Steve. I think on the Blair Mathis show, Steve was saying like, "Yeah, Vialle's not going to win this," and I'm like, "Well, he should be considered the favorite." And Steve's like, "What?" So,
Well, I was about to give you a hearty apology, Kellen, because is this not just playing out to Vialle's playbook brilliantly? I think I did say it at some point that if he wins this championship, I could see it without him winning a main event, and I'm there. Because Kitchen was so incredibly impressive at Daytona, maybe the best I've ever seen him ride. But it's Vialle who's moved into championship contention. It's a skill, it's a talent, it has its own value, and I feel like it's just shaping up. Now, admittedly, is he going to beat Max or Hampshire straight up? I still say no.
I think he could.
Well, Hampshire is easier because he's obviously at a deficit. He has to leapfrog Max. But if someone opens the door, he is going to take advantage because I do not believe he finishes outside the top 5 all year. And I think that only actually gets better as now, like, we've lost Kitchen, who, for instance, was clearly faster than him. So that'll push him up a little bit. And yeah, I'm ready to now talk about Vialle as a serious title contender. And all I can do is apologize for not getting there sooner.
You weren't familiar with his game. To be honest, when you brought up his name at first, I was a little bit like, huh? Because you can't go from leading the main event to finishing second and win the weekend, in my opinion. But I understand your logic. He has built into a very, very comfortable spot to be in the championship. And more or less, that was actually one of the topics I sort of had. I wanted to ask you who you feel has the best current positioning in the championship based on results so far and momentum between Anstey, Vialle, and Hampshire. And I feel like, given your take, you would maybe say Vialle is trending in the right direction. But
I wouldn't say Vialle is the best positioned.
But you get what I mean? Like, based on momentum currently, plus what he's already done to put himself in a spot, he's in a pretty good spot.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The championship comes from Max, Hampshire, Vialle. Yeah. Whereas prior to Daytona, Vialle wouldn't have been in that list for me. Right. So even the fact that I'm now putting him on that list says a lot, I think. But to your point about who is in the best position, I mean, I'd still go Max just purely because he's the one who has points to lose.
Yeah, I just mean that, like, this weekend momentum-wise was a blow. Crashing in press day.
Oh, yeah.
Heat race. He crashed in the heat race too, didn't he? Definitely crashed at the start of the main event. I'm trying to remember. Did he crash in the heat?
I feel like he did, but I can't remember it. I can only picture the main event crash.
Blanking.
No, he didn't crash in the heat.
Wasn't he way back? No, that was the main. What am I thinking? Anyway,
I can't remember his heat race at all.
I don't remember it either.
Oh, his heat race, he was behind Someone finished second.
Is that the one Vialle one where he got away early?
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, great radio.
Great radio. But no, to your point about Vialle, this is the same thing that I said though when someone brought up the point of can Vialle win this championship, is that of all the people on the track, he's the only one who's done it. He's the only one who's not only won a Supercross title, he's won 2 MX2 world titles. He's been there. He knows how to win these championships unlike anybody else. Obviously, Hampshire did last year too, so I guess we can take that too. But
Max is an 85cc Dutch champion, Kellen.
Okay. But Vialle specifically knows the building blocks it takes to win a championship. Yes, you have to win races. Yes, you have to be fast. But you also have to take results that are given to you. You can't just force a win or force a second place when it's not there. Take a third, take a fifth like he did at the opener, build points, get back in it like he did last year, and eventually the wins and all that will come, which I think they really will. Like when you said earlier, I don't know that he beats Hampshire or Anstey straight up. I think he can. I think that straight up, I think that there are going to be main events where he is as good or better than them. Because, like, let's go back to Philly last year. He didn't win that race. Anstey did. But Vialle and Deegan came from a hell of a long ways back to get second and third. And Vialle was the fastest rider on the track.
Supercross ever.
Right. So I think that there is still that version of him in there somewhere where he will just light on fire and go faster than all of them.
Dare I say, though, he doesn't need to. The way this is shaping up with inconsistency and whatnot, I feel like if he can just stay there and capitalize, it could end up serving him very, very well.
You're right. He doesn't need to, but I think he still will at some point. Like, I think that it's maybe this week, Indy, maybe a showdown. Just gets a good start, gets away, sprint laps. The whoops aren't going to be gnarly because they'll probably be beat down to hell like they always do at Indy. Maybe he wins this weekend. Like, I just don't see that it's impossible or in any facet. I think he could go on a run just like he did last year a little bit at some point.
We will see, but I'm definitely starting to become more open to the idea now. That's for sure.
Back to the point of who's in the best position, if you had to guess at this second, which Hampshire is not even third in the championship, he's fourth. Chance Hymas is still third. So, based on current trends, who are you picking to win this title?
It's really, really, really hard. Because I could honestly quite easily pick any of them and be happy. It's really hard. I think right now, I still go Max just purely because he's got the advantage.
Yeah. I mean,
but honestly, I'm 33% across the board with those riders. Like, it really is hard for me to split them.
Yeah. I think I would lean Max too, but I got to see a turnaround this weekend. I'm worried that the trend is going in the wrong direction a little bit.
Especially concerned because this is what happened last year.
Right.
Like it went, I can't remember the results exactly, but I think it was like 2-4-6 across the first couple of rounds. And we've gone 1-2-6. So, yeah.
All right. That was Tom Vialle's topic here on the LVK More Than Moto podcast. Let me tell you guys about Partzilla.com. It is the premier OEM parts dealer and distributor. They sell OEM parts for Honda, Kawasaki, Polaris, Can-Am, Suzuki, Arctic, Sea-Doo, Ski-Doo, and Yamaha motorcycles, ATVs, PWCs, and snowmobiles. Visit Partzilla.com to see their extensive line of parts and accessories. Partzilla PRMX Blaster Power Kawasaki. I need to remember the Blaster Power part. Mitchell Harrison got 17th this weekend. I mean, he's just hanging out in that exact spot. I think he's gone 16, 16, 17 the last 3 weeks. Jack Chambers won the LCQ, 13th at Daytona, and Preston Baseflug sadly did not make it in. What's your PRMX update from the weekend, Big Lou?
It doesn't make sense, but do you feel like as Jack Chambers gets better, he gets more invisible?
Well, I mean, not this weekend because he won the LCQ. He's very visible.
No, but in the main event, and I guess this is a wider discussion, Kellen, about the state of the sport. But once you get into that like 13 to 8 range, I feel like a lot of people overlook you, although it's a great place to be.
You're right about that because I was interviewing Cullen Park after the race, who's now gone 7, 11, 9, I think, to start the year. Like, pretty solid results. And I thought to myself, like, honestly, I don't know that I've watched him once this year yet. And he's like pretty solid top 10 guy. So I felt a little bit bad in interviewing him, but you're right. Like, once you get in that realm, you just disappear.
But good place to be. Like honestly, Chambers was 13th, right?
Mhm.
Compare that to his Supercross career before. Like this is an incredible step forward, and
Yeah.
we're early in this process as well.
Well, doing the races, I think he has you to thank.
Yep. And then Kellen, you're gonna hate this.
Oh gosh.
So you mentioned Cullen Park. I'm interviewing him this weekend. He stops mid-interview, says, "I just want to thank Lewis. A lot of people sent me. I don't know where I said it, where I said nice things about him. So it's like Thanksgiving in the pits, Kellen.
You don't even know what you said or where you said it?
No, I said that he's the most underrated rider in the world.
Oh.
Yeah.
I think you said that here.
Maybe he got sent LVK then.
There you go. All right, LVK making waves. Okay, so we want to do a giveaway. Thanks to PRMX for giving us some merch to give away. So this hat right here and this shirt right here, which I'll set up a little bit, you guys can see it. We're going to give it away. And Lewis is going to tell you guys the trivia that you must answer, and then we'll tell you guys how you win it.
Okay, thanks for that introduction, Kellen. This is a hard question that no one would be able to get right. So can we just say whoever gets closest to make it a bit more fun?
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Okay. So Ken Roczen won the 450 main event at a weekend. Don't know if you're aware.
Mhm.
What victory was... Wait, how would you even word this? How many now, after Ken Roczen's win in the 450 class, how many Premier Class Supercross wins does Suzuki have?
Oh, God.
That's why I said closest.
That is a brutally hard question. Okay.
No, but that's why I said everyone just throw a number.
Okay. So here's
Where
how
are
you
they
guys
going to throw a number?
Here's how you guys win it. This week specifically. Head over to my Instagram at Kellen Brauer, all one word. And when we post this show this week, I'll put up a graphic about who can win this prize. I'll even, I think, ask the question in the comments there so you guys can reread the question and answer it yourself. Just shoot us your answers. And we'll pick whoever gets the closest, I suppose, courtesy of Big Lou. This question is coming at you guys. And you guys get a chance to win a hat and a shirt for free. You don't have to do anything. You just have to answer a question. And if you get it close, we'll send you guys a PRMX hat and shirt.
How about this for context to give people something to go off of? Yamaha has won 188. So
Okay.
there's a bit of a meter to
There you
compare
go.
against.
Compare it against that. All right, big thanks to Partzilla, like I said. And we got 2 topics left. Lewis has got one and I got one. So what do you got?
What do I have? I don't really want to do this. I actually want to do another one, but let's just do this. And if it's short, I will pull my other one. I meant to do this pre-Daytona. Coty Schock did brilliant at a weekend, 14th. I would argue that achievement almost rivals his podium from the week before, especially after the day he had, where you managed to point that out to him.
Stop it.
But when I put on Twitter for the first time that he was racing Daytona on a 250, one person, and admittedly this is dumb because you shouldn't put the focus on one tweet. One bad apple doesn't spoil the bunch. But it got me thinking. And it stayed with me to this show here. This has been a couple of weeks. One person tweeted, "That's dumb AF. This sport is embarrassing." So, although it's not uncommon for a ride or a driver, let's say, to move from F2 to F1 on a weekend, although because of the restrictions on how many drivers, there has to be a reason for that, I would guess this tweet is specifically talking about the fact that someone's just taking their 250 bike and going racing.
Mm-hmm.
But what's your general vibe on this?
My general... Go ahead.
I'm not... I could see it from a point of view of you raced in the 250 class and now you're just taking that bike and going racing. I can see that it's a little bit, to the common man, it looks a little bit
Yeah. My point of view on this, honestly, is who cares? Seriously. Who cares? What bike he shows up on or what he does or why. He said he wanted to stay on a 250 because it's comfortable. It's what he knows. He doesn't want to go relearn a 450. This helps him even stay, let's say, a little bit fresher or more prepared for racing the Showdown next weekend. And this isn't new. There's guys, honestly, probably every week racing 250s in the 450 class. You just have to go down trackside and listen, usually in like the C group. And there's guys that were racing, 250 West and then jumped over the 450, but they only have a 250F. Like, they're privateers, so that's all they have. And it happens both ways. Like, there's guys racing 250 West or 250 East, and then we'll race a 250 on the West Coast and vice versa. Like, this is not new. I don't think it's like we need to bring it up as like, oh, Coty Schock is breaking the mold here. It's happened before. But I do actually want to say this. I genuinely think that racing a 250 on the same track in the 450 class will get you closer than you think to the front of the field. If you look at total race times, if you look at lap times, as long as these guys have the fitness to last 20 minutes, I think that if you put Deegan on a 250 in the 450 class, he could probably top 5 or be close. Like, these guys go really damn fast on these 250s indoors. The times are usually pretty close to top at qualifying. Daytona specifically, no, because it's a longer track and faster. But if you look at, let's just like pick a random, St. Louis, I would bet you the times are much closer than you think for total race time in heat race and where it was trending towards in the main event. And I would actually like to see it every once in a while. I really wish that we could have a top 250 guy race a 250 in the 450 class every once in a while.
Okay. Fair. I would like to see them on a 450 though.
Why?
I don't know, because it's correct, and we've seen that in the past, and it's great. Like, and I admit it's a result of this sport being more accessible, more, I don't know what you would call it, more. Well, yeah, I guess just more accessible. I want to say not as professional as F1, but that isn't fair because we are professional for what we are. I guess less restrictive, which is just another way of saying more accessible. Yeah, I don't know. I just, although I disagree with a tweet and it really caught me off guard, I guess I see it from the common man's perspective. If you say, oh, X person is racing F2 car in F1 this weekend, it's like, oh, okay. But then I guess it's also less of a issue in this sport because it's just engine size, realistically. So it's not like it's not like the bike is outdated technology wise or inferior. It's just it's just slower.
Yeah, to me, like, I feel like when we try to make our sport more like high class, like, oh, it has to fit into a certain mold, is when we start losing a little bit of the grassroots value of the sport. And I think it's cool that guys can show up on a 250 and race in the 450 class. Same way I still think it's cool that two-stroke guys will line up and race in those classes as well, even though some people think that's dumb. But just to further my point about how close these guys really are, I went and looked. RJ Hampshire won 250 Heat 2. The next race on the track was 450 Heat 1. So the track was close. It obviously got worse during the 450 Heat, but it went from the end of the 250 Heat to the start of the 450 Heat. Ken Roczen won with a total race time of 8:22. Shane McElrath got second with a total race time of 8:32. RJ Hampshire won that 250 Heat race with a total race time of 8:32. So he would have been battling for second place on a 250 in a 450 Heat race.
Okay, but without looking or knowing about when the white flag was thrown and stuff, that data can be skewed just on.
They did 6 laps. Both races did 6 laps. The total race time was, he landed right on top of Shane McElrath's TRT for that Heat race.
Okay.
So, like I said, I just think it's closer than people think that these 250 guys can. If they were to have to race 250 in the 450 class when they jumped up on an opposite coast, I think they would do much better than you expect.
I just don't know if that's. I don't think that's a debate here, though.
No, but I'm trying to emphasize this as like that's dumb AF, makes our sport look dumb or whatever. It's like, the 250 guys are actually hauling ass on those bikes.
Yeah. Okay, fair.
Yep. Do you have anything else to say? 16 seconds left?
No.
All right, good deal. You ready to move to my final topic, sir?
I would have a good Am I a Dick, but I forgot to say last week that I've retired that.
No, come on. We're not retiring.
No, it's done. People will take stuff too literally.
Oh, my gosh. Stop looking at the YouTube comments.
People actually thought that the last Am I a Dick was me like this was some sort of complaint box, you know? Like it's I don't understand the world, so yep, that's gone.
Yeah, stop looking at the comments. All right, ready for my last topic, sir?
Yep.
All right. We have our first of 3 250 East-West showdowns coming up this weekend in Indianapolis. And if you asked this question, let's say 2 weeks ago, last week, I think the answer would have been very obvious between which coast is better going into this showdown. Most people would have said East. We're hurting now. Obviously, Kitchen's out. It feels like this class is getting slowly depleted as races
who
go
else
on.
are we missing? I agree. I feel like a lot of guys are missing, but
McAdoo.
now okay.
I feel like
there's more.
Thrasher's hurt. He has a broken finger, so like he's not 100%.
So
Anyway,
we got Bennick back.
Point being, I want to know if you could tell me who is going to have the most riders in the top 5 between the coasts this weekend. Will there be more East riders in the top 5 or more West riders? Because it's an odd number, so it has to be.
I still say East.
You still say East. You don't think that Davies, Deegan, Juju could go like 1-4-5 or something like that?
The way I see it is purely based on Hayden's Arlington ride. Deegan wins. Then we go East, East, East. Then we go West.
So you're thinking...
I don't know who those riders are.
Sure.
But that's roughly how it plays out in my mind.
Yeah, because I agree that East is still deeper. 250 West has a more clear fall off.
Yeah.
But my argument that I wanted to make here is that like people say, oh, you know, just West Coast kind of sucks. It's not as stacked or whatever. But I still feel like the top end of it has actually been very good this year. Really good racing and elite guys battling for this championship. It sounds weird to say that about Juju, but I would say he's an elite guy in the 250 class now. Obviously, Deegan is. Shimoda is getting back to full health. Like I think that we're discrediting the West a little bit too much. But I agree with you still in saying that I would probably put 3 East guys in the top 5 this weekend.
The safest bet is that East will dominate the shit out of from 8 to 12. That is going to be probably all East.
Yeah. I mean, the way it works, like there's only going to be a maximum of 11 East riders or a maximum of 13 East riders in the main event. Like you can't have 17 East riders and only 5 West riders. So it's still going to be like a pretty even split. But I agree with you that like a majority of the top 12 would be East, probably.
Although there would be uproar because it would effectively ruin a lot of championships, I would love it if the East-West Showdown went away from separate heats per division and just let it run. And if we end up with 21 East guys and 1 West guy in the main event, that's how it's shaken out. Deal with it.
I don't like that.
Okay.
I think that in the chance that happens, that totally ruins one of the championships.
Yeah, but that's never going to happen where there's one guy. It would still end up being fairly equal. I think in this year especially, it would probably be the least equal. But I still think you'd end up with 13 East guys and 9 West guys, which is fine.
Yeah. Do you think Deegan wins though? Like based on what we've seen?
I really do, but purely based on Arlington, which is maybe bad to put so much emphasis on one race, but I really do.
Yeah,
Although his starts were really bad, and that's not going to work at a showdown.
True, but he did ride through those guys, so I don't know.
Yeah, those guys.
You don't think he can? I mean, look, you have more insight on this than me.
With what?
Go to the farm during the week. Is Deegan beating Anstey, beating Davies like all the time? Or are those guys close? Or
no, it's close.
That's what I mean. So, yeah, I guess maybe he couldn't ride through them if he starts 10th this weekend.
I mean, if you look at it purely scientifically, I feel like Anstey has probably been the best starter across both coasts.
Yeah.
Right? So you could bet on him being up front. I want to say that Juju's been a good starter, although Arlington...
It's kind of been hit and miss lately. It was good, but it's been hit and miss lately.
Give me someone else. I'm struggling.
Well, of late, it's been inconsistent, but I feel like Davies has been getting off the gate pretty well.
I don't know. He crashed in that first turn in Arlington.
That wasn't his fault. Cole Thompson just went straight. He was
but he was mid-pack.
He was right next to him, and Cole Thompson was like 4th going into the first corner, and he just went straight.
Okay. Why is it? I want to say RJ, but that's purely just based on. It's not great.
He hasn't a whole shot of race this year, has he?
No, but he's been like around. Vialle's been struggling with his starts. Daytona was positive.
He told me before Daytona, I don't know if you talked to him, he told me he worked a lot on starts these last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I asked him the same, but he couldn't really give me much of an explanation on like what, you know?
No, I mean, he didn't go into detail. He just said he worked a lot on them. So he's trying to get them back to his old form. So Deegan wins. We both maybe agree. Then it's Anstey,
Yeah.
Hampshire, Vialle, you name it, could be second.
And if there's a Butterfinger Whole Shot Award, then Anstey's most likely to take it.
Butterfinger.
That's a throwback.
Oh gosh. Let me ask you this. There's a pretty good chance these guys we keep talking about like in the 8 to 12 range normally. Cullen Park, Chambers, etc. just don't even make the main event. Who's going to be the most shocking person to miss the East West Showdown this weekend?
Well, speaking of shocking, no, I'm joking. Oh, well, it's hard to say because if it's a shocking rider, it's not going to be straight up, will it? It will be because of crashes. So, based on current evidence of mistakes and kind of a bit of a touch and go situation, Faulkner.
No, that's really good. My mind went to Marchbanks for some reason, but I didn't really have a good reason why. But Faulkner is a excellent choice as someone who could just leave without even making the main event. That's insane, but it's reality right now.
Well, I'm sure the person who writes the Triumph PRs really hopes that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that'd be a tough look. Do you think if he doesn't make the main, let's just hypothetically say he doesn't, that, I mean, we kind of know behind the scenes that it's not a very great situation at the moment. Like that probably just exacerbates problems, surely.
Well, let me ask you this. Are we at a point with Faulkner? Also, I figured this out. I thought this was interesting, and I keep forgetting to say it somewhere. No matter what coast he raced on in these previous years, I'm kind of stalling as I pull it up. Austin Faulkner has not raced round 9 since 2019.
He tore his ACL in 19, didn't he?
Yeah, but that was Nashville. That was like round 14.
Oh, I was thinking round 9 of their championship.
No,
not
round 9. Round 9 generally.
Yeah.
So, like, for instance, the last 2 times that he's raced East, he's not made it this far. And then
West wouldn't have been a 9th round, I don't think, in a long time.
yeah, so but that point,
Interesting tidbits.
basically, no matter the coast, he's always been injured at this point.
Yeah.
So this is a minor success. But what I was going to say is, are we at a point where Faulkner, if he makes every race without any issues, no dislocated finger, none of that, but he finishes 11th in the championship, do we have to park all criticism and just say, well done for making it? That's
no,
what I wanted you to do.
That's not good enough.
Okay.
I talked to him on Friday. I don't know if you did, but
I did as well. Sounds like we talked to the same people.
it's not abnormal. He kind of said that he's struggling getting what he feels at the test track into what he can feel on the race weekend with the bike. But I also specifically asked him, like in the past, he would, let's say, get a 5th and be pissed. Like, I need to be better than that. I need to be winning races. Even if I just came back from a hellacious injury again, I should be up there. And he seemed much more reserved and measured about not having great results thus far. And more like, I need to get my riding to where it needs to be, and then I can maybe complain about it or whatever. Is that a good attitude right now, you think, for him? Or does he need to kind of be sending it a little bit more?
If going the other way has got him in trouble in the past, then I guess anything different is good.
Yeah, but that's what's going to, in my opinion, result in what you just said. He'll end up like 11th in the championship.
No, he's going to be better than that.
He hasn't been so far. Like,
no,
even before the red flag restart where he crashed coming out of turn 1, he was probably 11th or like 10th. 9th. There you go. So it wasn't like he was 4th and tipped over.
So actually, okay, let me spin this. You would argue that it would actually be better obviously not life-wise, but it would be better if, similar to last year and years gone by, if he'd come out, won the opening round, and then got hurt, and right now he was hurt again. You think that would have to be a better look?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying
a better look. I'm not obviously
no.
Being injured wouldn't be good, but
no, it wouldn't be a better look because for a brief second we'd be like, oh, Forkner, and then it'd be like, oh, Forkner.
But would we not be sat here now going, well, at least he can still win, and when he's healthy, he can still win. Whereas now that narrative is starting to fade away.
I mean, yeah, obviously it is, but I just think that what he's doing now is okay. It has to be better. It's okay to not win races, but when you're Austin Forkner, you're the winningest guy in the class. You go to a brand that kind of probably expects him to be podiuming, I would assume, and you're struggling to sniff the top 5. It's not a great look. But again, like I try to give him the benefit of the doubt here because he's been on a Kawasaki his whole life. So to do this change and to go to a new motorcycle, he's probably still learning how to find that feeling from a practice bike during the week to the race bike, which everything is going to be fresh versus what he's been wearing down on the practice bike. That's a whole change that he has to get used to. And then also just in general, trying to come back from another ridiculous injury riddled off season. This time it was probably like, I feel like this off season, even if he was on PC, like we would probably have to give him more of the benefit of the doubt this off season more than any because of the brain surgery plus all that stuff that happened from his crash in Arlington. And like, it's a lot, you know? Yeah. So I don't want to be too critical on him, but I think it's not going anywhere as well as it should be yet, personally.
Yeah, you just want to see a lap time.
Yeah.
Some glimmer of hope.
Where's that been? You know?
I don't know.
I don't know either. All right. Well, that's our show. We are a little bit over time with that final topic, but that's okay. We had good banters, and now we get to roll into Indianapolis Showdown this weekend. Very excited to see that. And yeah, good times. Ready for it, Lewis?
Good times. Yep. Very ready for it. Ready for you to hit the track.
We'll talk about that next week. But thanks to Leatt, Namura, Race Tech, and Partzilla for backing the show. Head over to my Instagram. Be sure to get involved on that trivia contest, and we'll send off a nice shirt and hat to the winner. So thanks, guys, for tuning in, and we'll see you next week after Indianapolis.